I am Sean Blanda, your resident hipster, and I am also the managing editor of 99U. 99U is a book series, a website, and a conference series where our mission comes from the Thomas Edison quote, "The genius is 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration." And what that means is we really try to deconstruct what makes ideas happen. And as part of this mission, I find myself talking to a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of leaders, a lot of CEOs, a lot of notable creatives. And we ask them, how did you get to make the thing that you made? Don't just show us, but like really break down the mindsets and the approaches you used. And I always kind of throw in one more question. I like to the side after the interview's done, I go, how the hell did you get where you are? You have such a cool job. You have such a cool company. How did you do this? And the answer they always give me always surprises me, the mindsets and the things that have helped them. And I find myself wondering, why didn't I know that? Why didn't I know that in high school? You are so insightful. Why didn't my high school guidance counselor teach me and sit me down and tell me that thing? So I'm going to humbly suggest that we need to rethink the career. We need to rethink the way we perceive careers, and we need to rethink the way careers actually work. Now, this is the talk I wish I got when I was in high school, when I was in my wandering 20s, and I'm probably going to need when I have my midlife crisis in like 15 years. And I want to point out that thinking about your career is not a young person's endeavor, that industries are disrupted all the time. Our jobs are disrupted all the time. And even if you've had your job for 10, 15 years, you're on your fourth or fifth job, we all are probably going to be disrupted at one point in our life. We're going to have to shift course. So let's look at this. This is the standard, right? This is what we tell our children that needs to happen. This is when we think about successful people. We think that this is how they got to where they got. They go to high school for 4 years, and they get good grades, and then they pick their major when they're 18, which, by the way, is a crazy, crazy thing that when you're 18, you somehow know what you're going to do for the rest of your life. If 18-year-old Sean had any say in what I'm doing right now, I would be a hockey writer for the Philadelphia Flyers. I love hockey, but it's a lot of hockey. So you go to 4-year college, and then you slide on easy to your degree-related job, and then you are off to the races. Now, most people would accept that this is convention, that this is the way most successful people start. But they've done research, and how many people actually do this path? And the people that actually do this path is 1 in 10. 1 in 10, 10%. So the traditional path, the thing we're taught we're supposed to do, most of us don't even do that. So the untraditional path is actually the traditional. There's 9 in 10 people that we don't think are doing it the right way are actually the standard bearers. But we act like we live in this world when this is what happens. So if our perception isn't reality, what is our reality of our new career landscape? We're switching jobs. We're switching jobs a lot. My dad's advice to me when I graduated college, he said, Sean, find the biggest company you can, get an entry-level job, and just hold on for dear life. Just hold on. Because that's the dream, that's security. And it's laughable, obviously, to stay at anything for 20 to 25 years. More appropriately, we switch jobs every 4.4 years. And if this is a trend, right, this is the entire population. If this is a trend, younger people should be switching jobs more. So younger people 25 to 34, how often do we Millennials, how often do we switch jobs? Every 3.2 years. And I want to point out that that's 25 to 34. That's not 18 to 34, that's 25 to 34. If you're 25, you've graduated college for a few years, or if you graduated high school, you've been out for 7 years. You've had ample time to explore and to wander, but we're still switching jobs every 3.2 years. So why do people switch jobs so often? We'll get to this, but I think it's because job markets evolve. Industries are created and destroyed in a matter of years. It's impossible to plan almost longer than this. The other thing is we're scared. And there's a paradox here. We're switching jobs often, but it's not always on purpose. So the Economic Policy Institute asked people in 2007 and 2012, they said, they looked into how many people voluntarily left their jobs. And what that would imply that you left your job for a better opportunity, for a promotion, for a new company. Maybe you left to start a company. Maybe you left because you wanted to have more time to take care of your family. But you did it on purpose. You did it because that is where your trajectory was going. So the amount of people that did that in 2007 versus the amount of people that did it in 2012 was down 30%. We're voluntarily leaving our jobs 30% less. So there's lots of reasons, but I think what it comes down to is the gross instability out there in the job market. A lot of people are afraid to leave their jobs or don't think it's economically feasible. So if people are holding on to their jobs just for stability, what does that usually mean? If you're just kind of holding on for dear life, as my dad would suggest I should have done, it means we're dissatisfied. It's very hard to be satisfied when you're just getting them checks, and when you really see something you want to do, but you're not quite ready to take the leap. So Pew Research asked a bunch of people this question: do you think of your current job as a career, a stepping stone to a career, or just a job to get you by? Now, ideally, we would all be career. We would all be, the thing I'm doing is building a body of work, which I am proud of. So I think it's reasonable to assume that if you answered one of these two questions, you feel like you have some work to do. You feel like you're not satisfied. So the amount of people that answered these bottom two is 49%. So statistically, half of you guys in this room aren't satisfied with your jobs or careers. I hope you're not sitting next to your boss when I just said this to you. So I just threw a lot of scary numbers at you, but it's more to show how volatile and crazy the career and job market is. So I have a humble hypothesis in that we need new rules, that the things we were taught when we were younger versus the way things actually are totally disconnected. So what I want to do really quickly is contrast some of the old way of thinking with what I perceive as some of the new way of thinking, and my 4 favorites. And this comes from countless conversations with people as part of my role at 99U, but also just casually with my friends. When I find someone who feels like they're in control, that they're doing the thing they want to do, I'm sure some people are popping to your mind where you're like, that girl gets it, or that guy gets it. They're doing exactly what they want, and I hate them, but great. Those guys. That is who I talk to, and I helped build up this kind of, these 4 points. So this was the old way of thinking. This is my dad's advice. Stay with the same company. Now, this made sense back in the day. This made sense when we had pensions, when there was employee training, when there was pensions, when there was clear paths for advancement, and when there was pensions. Can you tell I'm really bitter my generation is not going to get a pension? We can't do this anymore. We can't do this because jobs don't exist over the course of decades. Companies don't have the money they used to, but I think more importantly, maybe you've seen this in your own role, when there's a job opening, right? Like hundreds of people seem to dive in for that one opening. The competition is fierce. There's always someone just willing to take your job. And they don't even have to be based in this country. They could be from elsewhere. So previously, you would surrender yourself to the machine and the machine would mold you. You would get your general liberal arts degree or communication degree or even science degree. You would enter a company and they would make you a company man. They would train you and educate you for 20 years and mold you to exactly what they wanted. But they don't do that anymore. So if the companies aren't going to take care of us, we got to take care of us. You are the boss of you. You are the CEO of you. Now, sometimes when I get to this point in the talk, people go, that's really depressing. No one's taking care of me. And it is for a second, but then it also means you're empowered. You have freedom. This, to me, is awesome. This means you need to think of yourself almost like your own company. You are the CEO of You Inc. In that you need to be agile. You need to adapt. You need to find your niche. You need to find your market, and you need to serve it like nobody else. You need to really dive in and be the best at whatever it is you do. Now, I think a successful career is one where you take control. For some people, that's money. For some people, that's freedom, whatever that is. It's one where you take control, and it starts with acting like you're in charge of it, that you don't have to rely on these outside forces. So remember this stat? People switch every 4.4 years. It's reasonable to assume you could shift entire industries every 4.4 years. Statistically, it's very likely. So we need to be super flexible. Now, this all sounds very good. It sounds very rah-rah, but how do we actually do this, right? At 99, you were really focused on takeaways and not just people glossing over the top and then moving on conveniently. I subscribe to the Newport Theory. Now, Newport is a computer scientist and a best-selling author. And his research was revolved around the exploration of the concept where you need to find your passion to succeed, right? That's what we tell our children and our little brothers and our little sisters. Just find out what you're passionate about, and it'll all just like fall in line conveniently. And Cal found that the people who were most successful instead developed a rare and valuable skill and leveraged that for their own freedom. So to give you an example, one of my best friends in the world, her name's Sammy, and she wanted to work in the fashion industry. Now, she got a job right out of college in 2008, great time to graduate college, by the way, and worked at an entry level in a glossy New York City magazine. So by all accounts, she was doing the things she should do. She was at the bottom floor. She was at the bottom of the top of the world. And what happened is the magazine industry got disrupted, is continuing to be disrupted by the internet. And they stopped hiring, they stopped promoting, and Her salary didn't move. She was being underpaid. She was getting menial work. But most importantly, the opportunities for advancement were slowly like crumbling away as people were just holding on to their jobs, or they were just swiping out whole levels of management. She didn't see that much of a future. So what she did is she started a blog, and she's really into vintage fashion. And what she did is she built an audience, and she knew every New York City vintage store. She knew where to shop, where you would find certain goods, what your budget was. She would tell you exactly where to go. And then she started making money on advertising. And then she wrote an ebook and sold it, and that provided money. People were opening up thrift stores, and they said, Sammy, help me out. You know all about this. And then she was like, whoa, I have developed a rare and valuable skill. What should I do with this? She quit her job. So right before I came here, actually, she texted me, and she was, it's 39 degrees Fahrenheit in New York City right now. It's pretty cold. And she was in LA with her feet up, working on her new project. And she's like, yeah, I'm about to launch my next big thing. This is great. And she couldn't be happier. She used this rare and valuable skill, her obscene knowledge of the New York City thrift community, and did what she wanted with it. Now, for her, that was freedom to travel, to work on the things she wanted to. But maybe for you, it's more money. Or maybe for you, it's stability because you want to stay home with the kids and you want a stable life for them. But the most important thing is, like, there is no major, best I know, of New York City thrift store knowledge in any college. You have to find that. That goes back to being the CEO of you. You need to find that. Speaking of college, this was the old way of thinking. Get lots of degrees. Degrees equal money. You want to make more money? Get degrees. Statistically, this is still true. A college graduate does make more money than a high school graduate. However, it's not as automatic as it used to be, and there's research to back this up. So here's the percentage of college grads by generation. Baby boomers, 1946, born between 1946 and 1964, 24% graduated college. We millennials, go team millennial, we're the most educated generation in history. This is great. We're all set to make our riches, right? You can see where this is going. But we paid more for it. This is adjusted for inflation, what 1 year of college costs average. This is more than double. This is crazy town. We paid more than $10,000 for college. But we paid more for it, but God, we're gonna make more money. So Pew looked at baby boomers when they graduated college, and millennials when they graduated college, adjusted for inflation, said, how much do they make median? We do make more money. They were right, we do make more money. But could be more, could be more. So to recap, we spend over $10,000 more in tuition for $117 more in yearly salary, which if you do the math is roughly $9 a month, $4.50 every weekly paycheck. So this is not to say that college doesn't earn you more money, because if I were to break this down for high school graduates, this would look much worse. But what it is to say is college graduates, that used to be your foot in the door and you're on the fast track. Now we're lucky if it gets us in the door. So here's what I think is more important than a college degree. It sounds obvious, right? No one likes working with a jerk. But I was once told there's 3 ways to get a job. You should be likable, you should be good, and you should be likable. And I think about, there's a good sports parallel here. No matter what your favorite sports team or your favorite sports league is, you can always think of that one, the diva, right? The athlete who's really good, and you would go, damn, I want him on my team, but he's a jerk. And this ends up sabotaging careers. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, so Terrell Owens is an example of this, or just recently Deshaun Jackson. People who are tremendously talented, but their teammates do not like them, and they get cut, they get switched teams, and their career is not what it could be. And this applies to beyond sports. And the reason it applies beyond sports is because we are more specialized than ever. Think of something like a website. You need someone to maintain the database, to code the back end, to code the front end, to design it, to write the content, to sell advertising against the content. All these people are the best at what they do. No one is a jack of all trades doing all these things. They need to collaborate and they need to work together, and no one wants to work with a jerk. To really accomplish great things, we need to collaborate. And think about that stat I showed before. We switch jobs every 4.4 years. You are going to have to tap into your network every 4.4 years and say, can somebody help me? And if you're not likable, if people don't remember, oh, Sean was all right to work with, I would love to have him in this new project I'm on, you're toast. There's no room for the jerk. There's no room for the rebel with a cause or without a cause anymore. So This is my favorite old rule, that there's a ladder. You climb the ladder, that there's a bunch of steps which you can see from one to the next, and there's an end. Career paths are not ladders anymore, if they ever were. I like to compare career paths to more like the weather. I can walk up to you, or you can walk up to me and ask me, hey, what's the weather going to be like in 4 days? And I could reasonably tell you with some expectation. But if I walked up to you and said, hey, I'm having a barbecue in 6 months. It's going to rain, though, so could you like bring an umbrella and pack the rain boots? Thanks. You'd go, what? How does he know that? There's no way he could know that. And it's because jobs change and industries are invented in months. And here's an example. Here's a list of some fast-growing jobs across various industries, various competencies, various levels of compensation. Now, take a look at this. Which of these did not exist in 2008? 2008 was not a long time ago. I like to think, because that's when I graduated college. The ones in blue, based on my research, are the ones that did not exist in 2008. So how the hell could I graduate in college, guess what I wanted to be in 6 short years? How could you? How could anyone? We can't. So to suggest there's a ladder where this job will be the same in a few years, or that job, we're going to assume that this job didn't exist, is crazy. Here's the next new rule. Nobody knows what they're doing. Now, the fact that there's a ladder, I feel like it's been sufficiently debunked. But what hasn't been talked about as much is how career paths wind. Career paths stall, career paths stop, career paths go up, they go down. Sometimes you're doing great, sometimes you're doing poorly. And as someone who, I went through this in my early 20s, and maybe you went through this or are going to go through this, in which you don't know what's next. You're in the middle of your career and you don't know what's going to come down the pike. And we as a society, I think is a mistake, is we almost look down on these people and we're like, you don't know what you're doing, you're just wasting your time, what are you doing? And I think if you don't know what's next, if you don't know what's coming up in your career, that's good. Because the industries that are going to happen, the high growth industries that are going to be really exciting, where you can make the most impact, they do not exist yet. And it is up to you as an individual and in your career to discover that. So if you're in the middle of a wandering career path, don't feel bad for yourself. Feel bad for the guy with the ladder. Feel bad for the guy who thinks that there's a next step, because that rung is probably not going to be there when he gets there, and he's going to be right behind you in line as you're kicking ass in whatever your new endeavor is. And there's another problem with the ladder. At the top, we act like there is a top. We act like you're going to get done. We act like you can dust your hands off and be like, I made it. That's it. I think a lot of my friends and a lot of people like to use the terminology, you're set. Get this job and you're set. Do this thing and you're set. Just slink on in there, get that promotion, you're set. No one's set anymore. But even if you are, you're not going to be set for long. So I'm sure there's a group out there of, Macromedia Flash developers or printing press experts who were set at one time. And for sure, those jobs still do exist, but their market used to be this, and now it's this. And I think this is to say that expertise is not a prerequisite for success. Just because you're an expert in something doesn't mean you're just totally insulated from the world. By contrary, if you're an expert in something, great, you made it, people respect you, keep on hustling. You can't stop. Instead, the best of us, we learn. We learn all the time. Learn, learn, learn. There's a reason we're called 99U, because the U implies the learning aspect. The learners will inherit the future. This hasn't changed in years. It was always important to learn, but it's always more important. It's more important now as things change so fast. Think about your job. Not necessarily you and your job, but think about what your job is. Now think about 10 years ago, 2004. The people that did your job, whether it was you or someone else, what did they do? Did they do the exact thing you do? Probably not. I know in my job, I'm writer, editor, blogger type. 10 years ago, if I brought that skill set to my current job, I wouldn't even be an intern. I wouldn't even be let in the door. And I'm sure the same thing is with your position. The only way to stay afloat in this ever-shifting economy is to always be learning to disrupt yourself before someone does it for you. So if there's one thing you get from my rambling up here, it's that the change in mindset. This is how we used to think about jobs. We used to think that we ask people what they want to do when they grow up. We ask our children, what do you want to be? We ask our friends, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Sometimes joking, sometimes seriously. And then whatever title you come out with, then we go, great, here's all the things you need to learn to do that. And spend some time learning that, and then come to the table and get your job. It's like there's a job store. You just collect skills and you walk to the job store and you put it on and they go, here's your job. Doesn't work that way. Hasn't worked that way in a long time. Instead, I want to posit that job, while you're doing those exact skills to learn that job, and this is the problem with college, we spend 4 years training up for a certain job, is going totally different in those 4 years. Things are changing so rapidly, we cannot have a job-first mentality. Instead, I think we should flip this. I think we should ask ourselves, what are we uniquely good at? What are we uniquely passionate about? What can we offer the world that no one else can? And even if someone else can offer the world, can we kick their ass in offering that thing? Because let's do that. Let's be the best at that skill. And then the job will come up to meet you. I think about my friend Sammy, who I mentioned. She became the foremost expert in New York City thrift stores. And then the jobs came up and met her. The opportunities came up and met her. And this doesn't mean be an entrepreneur. You can do this within your own organization, your own company. Build a set of skills and then leverage them to do whatever the heck you want. Now, I like to think I eat my own dog food here, and this presentation is always changing as I talk to more and more people. So if what I'm saying resonates with you in any way, if you're like, yeah, that makes sense, that validates with my experience, that's awesome. I hope you tweet at me. That's my Twitter name at the bottom right there, @SeanBlanda. But more importantly, if I'm up here and you're like, that guy has no idea what he's talking about, he's totally disconnected from reality, I have one request. Argue with me. Call me out on it. Because I want to take my own advice and learn all the time. And the best way I can learn is from you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. We're going to take approximately an hour. There is some food waiting for you. Please do keep the conversation alive with one another and folks you don't know.